Hello gang, me again, back here with this confounded bloody cross member still, but at least now it's pretty much done. I did the right hand side off camera basically because it's just so much nicer to do the job with the radio on and just work at your own pace and not have to film everything, you know, try to work out where to start, where to stop, and you know, it's when you're doing stuff like that, it's not so good. You know, the mechanical stuff, like you just put the camera on and build a gearbox is fine, but when you have to keep starting when you're doing fabrication work, it's not so good. So but luckily it didn't go very well, the right hand side. There was a lot of funny distortion in it, shall I say, from the factory, and me being as fussy as I am, I couldn't just leave it, so I ended up splitting it even further back towards the centre and doing more cutting about and fabricating. So let's go and have a look. I've also got some paint on here, some new paint to me. It's not new on the market at all, it's from Arkwright Paints again, and it's a Corroless product, and it's called QDR. But I'll tell you the other name for it in a minute, because it's known to them as QDR. They write QDR on the tin, but it's not actually on their website as QDR, so it's a bit strange. So we'll have a look at that. It is a really good paint. We'll show you in a minute. I've got it on some bare metal, and let's have a look. I'll stop waffling. Let's have a look at what I've done. Okay then, guys. So there we go. That's the cross member all done. This is the sound I've just done off camera, and yeah, it kind of went. It was like out. No, it was in here. And then probably because of this press in, and then out, and then in, and then out, and then in. So literally it's like, you know, a broken arm having to be reset. It's absolutely ridiculous. The bottom was only here, but the top was all over the place, and you could see where the welds have just pulled it all about. So yeah, it's sort of cut back to here, and there's a cut across here, there's a cut across here, there's a cut across here, and yeah, really pulled about, but all nice and straight in the end. So this is the chassis paint that's on there I talked about. I'll tell you the name of it in a minute because I'm going to be using some. And what I've done here, I've gone over these welds. Now I don't want to put any filler in here, so where I've ground back the welds, so you've got grinding marks, what I'm doing is just putting this paint on thick with a brush and then sanding it back. And then that paint will give the sort of filler effect in the grinding marks that are there. I'm using this. If you haven't got one of these, you do any body work, get yourself these guys, absolutely brilliant. You get the Merca Velcro tape that goes on the back of the Velcro, not tape, sanding pads, and basically you've got a nice hard flat surface. It sort of come in a set, and then basically I can just go over here now and sand this, and basically sand away to remove the tape paint at the top, and the chassis rolls away. Just check you're still in shot. Yeah, you are. And yeah, you can rub this down now. And there we go. There we go. That's that all there. Don't need another coat. We've got some low spots in here, but basically I'll just keep doing that until when I sand it, I end up sanding the whole thing flat, and then when I paint it, it won't show. Now we can do the top. Top's not really as important because you won't really see it because the body comes back to here. But as you can see, this paint it's like charcoal. It's really strange stuff. I'll show you something about it in a minute that's I found quite fascinating. I've never seen a paint do before. And also notice with these things, no clogging whatsoever. And if you do get clogging, you just pull this back like that, put it back on, and it unclogs itself. Absolutely incredible, really good. Okay, so there we can see the top is done and pretty flat. You've got some metal coming through there where there's high spots, but the rest of it is all sort of pretty much sanded. So that's going to look great when it's painted. See a low patch here. Where are we? There's a low patch just here. You can see the brush marks there still. There, so I'll get some more paint. But I just want to show you, if we take a high patch, this is painted directly onto steel. There's no etch primer or anything on here. And if you look at it, look at how it scratches. It doesn't kind of scratch like ordinary paint does. come on camera, focus. It kind of almost mends itself. It's weird. Where are we? There, you doesn't sort of go down to the metal. It kind of, it's almost like a rubber coating. It's weird, which should be really good. I think if you go for an MOT and you've got a guy there banging your chassis with a rubber hammer, it'll be really good for that because it won't just flake off. It just sticks. It really does stick really, really well. Thoroughly recommend it. What I'll do, I'll go and get the can now because I'm going to use some, and I'll show you what it is. Right, so here we are on the cross member. I was going to show you the paint, wasn't I? This is it here, Corroless. You can see on the top they call it QDR. It's actually glass reinforced chassis paint, black. Not to be confused with the one coat smooth paint. And there's another chassis paint they do as well, because chassis in one or something is called. This is the one. This is the one to use. Glass reinforced chassis paint, black. You may need to ring them up or email them and say, you know, can I have QDR? I don't know why they don't call it QDR on the website. It would make life a lot easier. But yeah, that's the stuff. And if you take the lid off, you can see it's quite a thick, gloopy paint. It's almost like a thin underseal, and it's really, really good. I'm very, very impressed with it. I'll just show you here. I've got a brush here which has got some paint already in it. Basically, that's the other thing I found is if you don't clean the brush properly, you just dip it in some thinners for a couple of minutes before you want to use it, and it revitalizes it. But you can see it's quite thick and gloopy, which is really good. So let's go over and use some now. I'm going to brush some into the areas that are going to be covered up with these plates on the bottom of the chassis. I've got plenty on the brush. I'm trying to paint now and get it all down in there. Flood in there like that. Down in behind. And the reason I'm doing this now is these plates, sorry about the dog, these plates are going to weld on here. If you remember, there's a plate that goes on. I'll show you those in a second. And all in here was rusty, so I want to make sure I get some paint in there. And I've already done the back of the plates with zinc rich primer. So I'll make sure I get some paint in there. I'll get some wax all down in there as well after it's welded. But what I found when I welded down here quite close to this paint, it didn't really seem to affect it. I'm not on about next to it, I'm on about close to it. It didn't seem to affect it, so yeah, let me get the other side painted and I'll come back. Okay, so there we go, brush painted those areas in now and gone all down the back. In fact, I've brush painted everywhere where there's bare steel, because when it sits outside, obviously if it rains it gets rust on it. These are the plates I made. If you remember, there's the old triangular plates here, which I cut off. So I remade those, 2mm steel, and they've got zinc primer on the back of them, and they're going to get welded in just like that. I've got one for each side, so they'll go in just like that and get weld. I'll round off the corners first and weld them in. Wait for the paint to dry first before I do that. Before any fires, I want to get another coat or two in there as well underneath where it's going to be covered up. So here we are on the back end, on the underneath I mean. If you remember, on this underside I cut through with hole saws and everything, and then put pieces of steel back in. Go back to the last video or 2 videos ago and you'll see what I did on there. I did the same on this side, and what you'll see on here, you'll notice because I did it this way, I've actually pulled the whole cross member out away from these brackets, so you can see now we've got a taper there where the weld runs away. The weld used to be parallel along here, but now it runs away. And when you look at the other side, if we go around to the other side of the chassis, just flip it over like so. There we go. That's it the right way up. And you can see on here, because I cut it here and along there, we've remained parallel there. I think I might put a weld in here as well, because that's a bit of a mess where in the factory they haven't welded, they just sort of come up to here and stopped instead of going to the end. So I think I might do something there. But you can see the same on this side. Basically we've got a dip in here where I think when I cut it, it kind of all sprung down. So rather than pull it back up and put stress in it, I just welded it as it was. It can't be seen anyway. Body goes on here. So interesting point as well, in this month's Land Rover Owner magazine, Land Rover Owner International, reading in there, They're talking about 30 years of the Defender, and basically they talked in there about the, yeah, why they talk about 30 years of the Defender? 30 years ago was 1990. Defender was well underway then. Yeah, strange. So anyway, they talked to the chief engineer off the project, and he was glad to see it finished, because apparently the biggest nightmare with these things was the fact that you've only got a couple of hard points. You've got one here, which is on the outrigger where the bulkhead goes, so you've got that point there, and then all the way back here on the rear cross member is where the rear tub bolt's on, and you have to have millimetre precision. This is the words in the magazine. You have to have millimetre precision between here and here. That explains this mess, doesn't it? Yeah. So that's why, guys, your older Land Rovers had the plates welded on the outside here, okay, and then they were able to get that millimetre precision. And the other thing I noticed on the old ones, they used to have shims in here, but if you look on here, I don't know if you can pick it out, shows I've got the light from outside is glaring, it doesn't want to focus, but on here it's really roughly milled, where they've actually obviously jigged it up and then taken a dimension from somewhere and milled this off after it's been welded together. So there we go. So I need to go around and get the rest of this chassis prep now. The plan is, I was going to sandblast it. I've changed my mind, because basically the sand gets everywhere, not only everywhere outside the house, but everywhere in all the box sections. And I remember from doing the axles, it was a bloody nightmare, because no matter how much you blew it out, when you ended up painting it, the sand ended up coming out. So I'm going to just basically wire brush, I got one there, it is there, wire brush on a grinder I think, and just go round and do these welds. Apparently this paint is fine over rust, it actually gets in and kills the rust, so I'll do as good as I can, but I don't really want to go down the blasting route with this. I don't think, get the sand everywhere. So what I tend to do is go around, treat all the areas that are rusty, go around, wire brush them, paint them just so they've had one coat, work all the way around. I think it's going to take me probably 2 or 3 weeks to do, and then once I've done it all, it's all had one coat brushed on, then I can go round, rub it down, spray a coat on, give it a couple of hours, spray another coat on, as long as the weather stays nice, and then it'll have a real good sound basis then. Some people have asked why I haven't gone for galvanising. 2 reasons. One, it's an old chassis. If it was brand new, I would. If I was buying a new chassis, I would buy a galvanised one. If I bought a new chassis that wasn't galvanised, I would send it for galvanising. The trouble is with this, it's been wax oiled inside, and it's got all sorts of sort of dirt and crud and everything in it. You can see there's some mud on there. Apparently when they galvanise them, if you end up with any mud or crap in their galvanising tanks, they can get quite funny about it. There's also a minimum charge for the zinc. So I read that apparently one of them charged like £70 or £7 a tonne for the zinc, or £70 a tonne, but the only minimum £10. So that's 700 quid straight away. So I think a lot of people sort of say you may as well, by the time you've paid for it to be cleaned and paid for it to be blasted and acid dipped and all that, and then get it galvanised, you may as well just buy a new chassis. So I may as well stick with what I've got, and then when this does finally rot out, then I will get a new chassis. But I think this is going to go on for years. There's no internal rust in it at all. It's wax oiled from day one, so I think we'll be okay. So there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. Sorry if it's been a bit of a crap video, but there's not really much to talk about when you've got the cross member straight. It's sort of lots and lots of work with not much to show for it, really. You know, if you put this many hours work into an engine, you have it built. So, or this many hours into a body work, you'd have something to show. But anyway, I've got a nice, I hope you can see it, I've got a lovely straight cross member now. Dead straight. That's going to sit on that body, absolutely beautiful. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon.